Imagine long ago that you were living on the south side of an island that was about 100 kilometers by 100 kilometers, about 60 miles by 60 miles. And one of the favorite things you guys like to do, and there were about 1,000 of you, was to explore up on the north side of the island because there are all types of plants and animals that didn't exist on the south side. And one day, you guys went up to the north side and you found this toad that you'd never seen before. And you noticed that it started secreting something off the top of its head. And one person went up there and touched it, and immediately they noticed something happened to them. It was like a whole world opened up to their eyes that they never saw before. They could look at the fruit trees, and you could tell the difference between the fruit based on its ripeness. It looked different. There are all types of advantages that would come to people by heightening their senses when they simply touched this frog. So what this expedition did is they brought back 100 toads, because there were about 1,000 people, and they brought these toads back because they thought to themselves, what would happen if we could get everybody to touch these toads? And it wasn't long before someone found out that, hey, the best way to touch this toad is to lick it. So here these people were, 1,000 people. Every day they would lick these toads and they would enjoy life like they never could. They would go out foresting for their food, and they knew exactly which ones to pick. Everything was different. They could see things in ways that just made society unbelievable. But then one day they noticed, oh, Jimbo over there was starting to act a little strange. So everyone thought, we better keep an eye on Jimbo. He might do something crazy. And sure enough, he did. He grabbed this big stick, and if we hadn't stopped Jimbo, he would have gone over there and started beating about a dozen little kids' heads in, yelling, this isn't right, this isn't right. So we put Jimbo under surveillance. We had to lock Jimbo up and take away his toad-licking privileges. But much to our amazement, that violent behavior went away. So we let him back out, and we all continued to lick the toads. But then Mary Ann started acting like Jimbo did the other day. Out of the blue, she started acting weird, so we knew to pay attention to her. And sure enough, she started to commit a violent act, but we had to stop her. Had to lock her up and take away her toad-licking privileges. And that continued on and on and on, and every day we never knew who it was going to be, who was going to act up. And we finally had a town meeting. We finally realized, look, if only one person out of 1,000 of us can't handle licking these toads, we've got to ban toad licking for everybody, because we don't know who it's going to affect. And boy, you talk about a ruckus, because people are thinking, that ain't right. Why should I be denied these toad-licking privileges just because every now and then someone wants to kill somebody? That doesn't make sense. It's not fair to me. And they said, no, let's just lock them up. Let's just keep an eye on everybody, and every time we see someone acting like that, we'll throw them in this little hut that we made for them so they can't hurt anybody. Take away those toad-licking privileges, and once they act normal, we'll let them back in, and we'll just keep an eye on everybody. And we did that, but guess what happened? We didn't see one guy when he first started going crazy, and the next thing you know, there were dozens and dozens of children whose heads were smashed in. Now what do we do as a species? Do we recognize the evils that come from licking these toads and ban this forever? Even if 999 out of 1,000 people can maintain okay, but one person always acts up, should we all be banned for life? And the answer to that question is, of course it is. And I'd like to think you guys know how I'm trying to explain this. The parable I'm using here. What is the toad licking? Cooking of our food. Now, I just read an article yesterday coming out saying, oh, we can't trust scientists. Their studies aren't right, and they're right. And then they referred to these two guys that did the research, and they took 50 ingredients from a cookbook and tested them to see which ones caused cancer. 40 out of 50 of these ingredients cause cancer. And they list sugar, salt, or salt and sugar, or salt and flour, parsley and sugar. That was the arrangement they had in this article. They had to throw parsley in there Come on, guys. How is parsley going to cause cancer? You cooked it, I guess. And no one ever caught on, obviously, to the key common ingredient to all those things causing cancer. They're all cooked. They're in a cookbook. It's the cooking. That's the licking of the toad in our society. Hey, I am able to eat cooked food. I'm a good guy. Why should I be punished? Just because some people eat processed foods and want to kill people. It's not my fault. Well, maybe it is. Maybe society can be blamed. Of course it can be. Society attacks early when we're helpless. We're already born into bondage. We're born into a belief system and a way of life that guarantees everything keeps going. And the way we're being bombarded and manipulated through the media is astonishing. Read another article yesterday came out and proved how the newer generations have been molded, their brains have been shaped to view certain subjects that are not reflected in the other generations. Because this is a long-term goal, plan. Remember the Fabian Society, 1884, to usher in a one-world collectivist state over a long-term period of time, slowly change and shape our opinions. And now the younger generation believes it's their own thoughts that make them think a certain way, and has nothing to do with their own thoughts. It has to do with all the bullshit that's been bombarded in their brains. It wasn't bombarded in mine. That's why we have different beliefs on the subject matter. But I've gone beyond the belief because I can understand things from a scientific point of view, or I should say a logical point of view. And that's what we want to do when it comes to solving our problems. Throw the science out the window. Sure, I like to use it when there's proof that shows that we have coherent sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells. But since we can't trust science, I'm willing to throw it all out and just use our common sense, just use logic. And the only time we'd ever want to use science anyway is to see if we can find a logical fallacy in the details or the contents of something. And if you watch enough of my videos, you know that there are two criteria that must be met when we use logic. There are two requirements. There are, in essence, two tests that everybody has to pass in order to use logic. So we can use science for the logical fallacies, but guess what? In most cases, we don't even need to waste our time looking at the logical fallacies in the contents because the structure is already invalid. The whole purpose of my special teaching tool is to help illustrate that point, that you don't treat symptoms for problems that are within our control. That's putting the cart before the horse, and in Latin it's called monus ponens. That's the only test we have to take when it comes to understanding nutrition and medicine, because our so-called experts are guilty of monus ponens. They don't understand cause and effect. They're clueless. And in both situations, when it comes to nutrition and in medicine, they both don't understand the elimination system and how it's contributing to the disease process that we all know in the alternative field as auto-intoxication. Our blood is polluted, our lymph system is polluted. That's the disease process. It's not complicated. So don't rely on science to come out and prove what I'm saying is true. Prove to yourself that what I'm saying is true. There's really only one way you can make any sense out of this. As Arnold Ehret would say, you have to be clean first before you can evaluate anything. That's where the solid food vacation comes on, whether it's on water as in Ehret's time or juices as in our time now, which really is needed because of all the environmental toxins that can be inside of us, and then we won't have the glutathione we need to complete that two-phase process our liver goes through to neutralize and eliminate those toxins. But the solution is always the same. We got to realize the role our diet plays. We can't trust our experts in nutrition or in medicine. You've got to be your own healer. You've got to create a clean body so then you can go back and evaluate what's really food and what's not food. No, then and only then will you really be able to make any sense out of this. And of course, it's why I always come back to the same thing in every video. We got to see what we're missing. Most people don't know what we're missing. And once we do, we have a better appreciation of what it's going to take. And then that's no guarantee because this is not an easy thing to pull off. Some of us are living in areas that make it expensive and hard to do. Some of us don't make enough money to buy everything organic. And remember, before the chemical revolution in the 40s, everything was organic. And that's why you have to consider how long your grandparents and their grandparents lived, because they were introduced in life at a time where they weren't exposed to those toxins. And that's crucial. First 10 years of our life are so crucial in laying down the foundation of our health, especially when it comes to the chemicals that we're exposed to. So, what do? Well, we have to empty our cup, number one. When it comes to understanding everything I say, almost the first thing you have to do is always just empty your cup. Look at everything as if it's true and false. Question everything even I say unless it resonates with you, and what you're going to find is most of the things I say are going to resonate with you because it's all simple common sense. It's simple logic. That's what I rely on. Does it make any sense whatsoever to alter our food in an ideal situation? No. We're not in an ideal situation now. It does make sense that we modify what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life, a solid food vacation on water. But the chemicals have made that difficult now. So now, if you're going to partake in a water fast, it's best you check out your heavy metals, the amount of toxins that you have in your body. And there are various protocols that you can do to help you get those out of your system. And then, once you get rid of those, it's a matter of choice. And sometimes our choices are limited by our own lives. Unfortunately, most of us don't have the time to take a vacation from life and drink nothing but water. It takes a lot out of us as far as our responsibilities go to pull that one off. But a solid food vacation on juices, my gosh, everything gets better. Your performance gets better. Does it require a little bit of work? You bet it does. Does it require a little bit of sacrifice? It's only an illusion that we think it's a sacrifice because we don't know what we're missing yet. Once we see what we're missing, we realize, my God, what was a sacrifice is not feeling the way I feel now once I flush out that cesspool and bump up that sunlight energy that makes me feel one with everything. That's the true warm, fuzzy feeling that we search for when we go to the wrong food or sex or drugs or money or relationships. One of the biggest causes of anxiety on this planet is that deep down, we know something's not right. Something's missing. Can't really put our finger on it, but Dr. Fritz Albert Popp did when he coined it, a biophoton, back in 1976. And of course, it's a big part of my story. And yes, science has helped me understand it. I didn't really understand what happened to me when I took my 7th juice feast, a solid food vacation. I went the distance. When I got to the end, and I had uncontrollable tears coming out of my eyes, I thought, well, I kind of think I know what it is. I had a bunch of garbage come out of me. That's got to make me feel better. But way back then, I thought it had something to do with Dr. Norman Walker and his explanation about cosmic energy vibrations and how every tissue in our body vibrates at different frequencies. And when we're toxic, they won't vibrate the right frequency, and that's not a very easy feeling. It's an uneasy feeling. Something's not right. So I just kind of thought, well, got rid of that serpent, that cesspool inside me. Now my tissues are vibrating at the right frequency, but I didn't know about biophotons back then, but that makes more sense than anything. My cells are finally connected. And what's even more exciting is that our short-term memory is in our brain, but our long-term memory is in the biophotons. So if you want a good memory as you age, if you don't want to age like everyone else and have these age-related diseases, lose your memory, etc., stop cooking your food. But John, didn't help your gray hair, did it? My gray hair is not age-related. Yeah, my mother was damaged when I was in her womb. And that damaged the cells that turned my hair gray. I turned gray in my early 20s. It's not age-related. It's not diet-related. It's genetic-related. And we do inherit genetic defects, and that's the hardest part of this equation. What can we do about a genetic defect? Well, for me, I don't care what my hair looks like. I'm not going to dye it. But if I wasn't able to make some beta-glucan, for example, a level 2 nutrient, then I'd have to supplement that. If I was born with a pancreas that didn't produce any insulin, I'd have to take that also. So there is a time and a place where we need to support our body when it's not working. And in my case, my hair is just not producing its pigment, and whether or not that can be Repaired is interesting. I'd like to see that happen. I do know for sure, I've coached lots of people, and I know when gray in hair is with age related, change your diet, your hair will get darker. I've seen it happen all the time. If it's genetic related, like in my case, and I just read a study, thanks a lot, I got a study sent to me early in May that explains how this works. That when you are in your mother's womb, and if she is exposed to a certain toxin, that it will damage your cell's ability to create the pigment for your hair. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's really getting hot out here. I am covered in sweat. There's no breeze whatsoever. And my body's wanting to cool off. Now, of course, if I was wearing a shirt, I'd be absolutely miserable right now, because I'd be sweating even more, and I never would get cool off. But as soon as I jump on my bike in just a few seconds and I get a little bit of a breeze on me because my bike is moving, I will get actually a chill over my body, because my body is so efficient at cooling itself down. In fact, if a little bitty breeze comes, ooh, I feel it right now. I can already feel a decrease in body temperature. There are times when it's 100 degrees out and I'm in this situation and I actually get a chill. I get goosebumps. My body is so good at cooling itself off. And it doesn't work with clothes. Put on a shirt. Why do you want me to suffer and be sweating even more and have to do laundry and all that other stuff? Yeah, rambling quite a bit on this one. Can't trust science. Who can you believe? Only your own experience once you've got cleaned out. And then you can experiment and find out what you think is the right food or the wrong food. And remember, some of us just have certain food allergies, but when we get healthy and clean, a lot of the things that are natural that we have allergies to will go away. So don't be surprised if your allergy to strawberries all of a sudden disappears when you start getting clean. Just like people say, when I go out and get sunshine now, I used to burn all the time before, but now that I'm only eat raw food, I don't burn anymore. But boy, I sure am sweating. I think I'm going to have to sign off. I've been rambling on too much here. Beware, my friends. Many things that we think are our own original thoughts only have to do with the amount of references we have on the subject matter. My generation doesn't have a whole lot of references compared to the younger generation, therefore we're going to look at certain subjects differently. And the only reason why I bring that up is to help you guys understand that we're constantly being manipulated and guided to long-term goal that they have to usher in this one world collectivist state. And it's all about changing your behavior, changing your values. And it's done very easily. And most of us are totally unaware of it. So the first step is to first get detoxified so your brain can think better. The next is to go back and question a lot of your beliefs that have been bombarded in your brain just so many times that you accept certain values without realizing that you've been tricked and duped into thinking that way. Now, I've been pretty vague in this video about a lot of things, but I think some of y'all may understand where I'm coming from. If you just did a quick Google search, you'll figure it out real quick. Anyway, what can I say, folks? It's not easy to break away from the stream of the crowd. We just glide along, don't we? God, it's kind of scary. I reflect back on what I used to think, how I thought when I was younger, based on how I was programmed. And then it's even funnier, I think of this quite often, how when I was in high school, I thought about graduating thinking, wow, the year of 72 high school, we got to be the smartest kids ever. Every year it keeps getting better and better and better. That's what I thought way back then. I was so naive. And I remember thinking to myself, as a teenager way back then, my God, what's going to happen? 20, 30 years down the road, I'm 40, 50 years old, and these kids are coming out with educations that are going to be so much better than mine. What a joke. My good friend Bob Wood, who turned me on to raw food and personalysis, was 25 years my senior. And he got a better education than I got. Our educational systems aren't getting better, they're getting worse. And you younger generation, you really need to check your values. You really have to check how you're being conditioned and brainwashed. You need to take a look at how TV has changed over the years and look at the long-term goal that has been foisted on us to control us. And it's working. But you know what? A lot of us can wake up very quickly. And we are. That's what's so exciting about this. And again, it begins by being first detoxified, then de-indoctrinated. Then it comes by continuing on the hero's journey, sharing the message, helping people in every way you can, realizing that most people you're going to be in conflict with in their opinions, it's not even their opinion. And the reason why you're going to be in conflict is that with them is because you understand it's their global agenda to brainwash the masses to think a certain way. And that's what's so frustrating when we have a discussion with people who've been brainwashed. We realize that they're just victims. And it's really hard to help them understand what's going on. And I wish there was some clever way to snap them out of it. And sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. I guess it's best not to waste too much energy on those with a lower percentage of waking up. Because there's plenty of people out there that are a lot more open, that will be much more receptive to this. And I reckon that's where we should put our attention. And hopefully one day, we can get enough people to wake up. Turn the planet around. We'll have a place where crime and violence and hatred and bigotry, these type of things will be pretty much part of our history. Except there will be a trickle-down effect, I'm sure, just to remind us of what could happen to us if we lose sight on the most important thing in this world. Don't lick that toad. The day we can ever wake up and stop licking the toad, I guarantee you that is when we'll be in for a treat.